melaksanakan perintah kawalan pergerakan.
Going live in 3, 2, 1, cue.
Assalamualaikum and welcome back to IIUM TV's Political Insights 40 Minutes of Political Knowledge. I'm Ismail.
I'm Alia Daniel.
And we will be hosting for you guys in today's episode.
Before we get into our discussion, don't forget to follow us on all of our social medias at IIUM TV on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and our latest account on TikTok. Alright, Aisha, I have a question for you.
Hit me up.
So, recently, when you go out, what is the one thing that you will always see?
Well, I'll tell you what. Recently, I was on my way to the LRT and I passed by this apartment and I saw the apartment was covered in flags. And I was like wondering, what is going on? And if you are a true citizen of Malaysia, how could you miss the actual issue of right now? How would you not know what's going on? You know what I mean?
Right, and I'm pretty sure that for the viewers out there who are very active on social media, this will be the topic for you. So when we see flags, it really means that the general election is soon. So today, we'll be talking about specifically the dissolution of parliament.
And to discuss on this topic, we have invited a very special guest here with us today, Sir Halmie Azrie from Ideas, to help us see and what is all this issue about. So welcome, Sir Halmie, to our studio, and how are you feeling?
Thank you for having me, Alia, and also Aisha. So far, I'm feeling good, excited for the elections, and definitely it's going to be a very bumpy ride for the next few weeks ahead with all of the campaigning.
All right, so you're excited, right? To talk about this topic. So shall we dive right into the topic?
Sure.
All right, so my first question for you is, what are the situations that actually permits the parliament to be dissolved?
Okay, to dissolve a parliament, normally it will take probably two motivations in different circumstances. The first, it will come down to whether or not it is politically needed. In a time of crisis, in a time of deadlock, when you have a real dangerous situation, like say emergency or whatnot. So that would be one of the main motivations to dissolve a parliament. The second motivation that we could highlight when you want to make the effort to dissolve a parliament would probably be politically opportunistic or driven. So this is where it comes when it is convenient for the incumbent government to basically dissolve because it has an advantage to go into the general elections for whatever reasons. And in Malaysia's current situation, it was under the right time for a particular party to dissolve or basically push to demand for the dissolution of a parliament. So those two situations, we got to distinguish whether it's politically driven or politically needed. Yeah.
Right. And like you said just now, according to our situation at the moment, it is definitely the second motivation, which is the decision has been made when it's because of its political drive, right?
So recently, now that the parliament has been dissolved, do you think that the dissolution of parliament was in line with our federal constitution?
Yeah. To talk about the legal aspect of it, it is based on the findings, or based on what we have at the moment. It went through the right processes. I think it went to according to Article 40 Clause 1 and Article 40 Clause 1A that enables the king to basically act in accordance with the advice of the cabinet or prime minister, and also Article 40 Subclause 2B that basically grants the power, the discretion to the king to say yes or no, to accept the request from the prime minister. So, and also when we talk about it in terms of Article 55 of the Federal Constitution, Clause 2, that enables the king to prorogue or dissolve parliament. So basically it went through the right processes. Whether or not, again, it was legally approved, but whether or not it is ethically or we would say morally accepted, that's another whole different issue.
So, considering the fact that you've already mentioned that the Yang di-Pertuan Agong obviously has the ultimate power in and say in dissolving the parliament. So, would you say that the members of parliament have a say in this actually?
Yeah. Okay. Before going to that particular question, Aisha, I would like to also highlight that although going back to the second question, when you talk about it went through the right processes, it was constitutionally okay. However, there are some challenges. I think recently, the former MP of Klang, Charles Santiago, brought to court to basically challenge the decision, or basically to see whether or not it is legitimate. So I think this is an ongoing process. There's a debate about it. But from my humble opinion is that it was dissolved correctly. So coming back to your question, whether or not we would say that the cabinet, right, or the ministers have a role, basically no. Definitely it is up to the prime minister himself. That is the privilege that he's given, and also for the king to ultimately have the final say whether or not yes or no. The prime minister can only advise, but he does not need to seek counsel from any of the other MPs or any of his cabinet members. Yep. But it would be much more politically, I would say, convenient if he gets the support. But he can actually, by law, go on and talk to the king privately to dissolve parliament.
So, meaning to say that he doesn't exactly need the approval of all of the MPs,
No, doesn't need.
just the Agong.
Yeah, just the Agong.
So,
Yeah.
would you like to ask the next question?
So after the parliament has been dissolved, who will be in charge to govern the country, and to what extent does the power, or do they hold?
So automatically, when the parliament is dissolved, it goes into a caretaker government. So the caretaker government essentially is very limited in terms of its authority, in terms of its role. The main driver, I would say, that means the executive branch has basically dissolved. What is basically come into play is the civil servants. So the Ketua Setiausaha Negara, our KSN, will automatically assume a caretaker role in terms of running the government and administration. And we have a caretaker prime minister and all of the relevant ministries like health, defense, and other ministries. Their role is very limited. They cannot sign any new agreements, any treaties. They are not able to make any public announcements on new plans, nor can they actually take up any additional budget. So I think there are a lot of limitations. However, the problem with Malaysia is that we do not have a guideline or a black and white to describe what is a caretaker government's role and functions. So that's why you see sometimes the basically what happens is that the caretaker prime minister will definitely make all of these announcements at various programs as a campaign tool, which is definitely not the way it's supposed to be done. So definitely we need to relook at the issue of a caretaker government as a main priority, with given we have a lot of instabilities, or basically our whole political landscape has changed. It is no longer one party dominance, it is a multi-party competition. Therefore, this frequency of changing government will occur more in the future. So definitely the caretaker role must be more transparent and much more obvious to the public.
So I understand that until we have a new government, no new projects can be passed, and it is important that the caretaker government ensures the stability of the people. Right. All right. So before we catch a quick break, I just have a quick question for you. So recently, 12 ministers from the government have sent a letter to Yang di-Pertuan Agong expressing that they disagree with the dissolution. Did this actually affect the decision that was made by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong?
Yeah, speculatively, yes, it did play a role because basically the Prime Minister, Ismail Sabri, Dato Ismail Sabri, no longer felt that he can hold together a very fragile government, a coalition of convenience between the different parties, because basically the partners bersatu and PAS in the formation of Perikatan Nasional no longer believe that, or basically they do not want to go into an election for various reasons that I think is known. Therefore, when we look at that, definitely it had a play impact. It influenced, but also symbolically, it gave to the issue that the Prime Minister wanted to show to those who were basically dissenting or have a different view that this is the punishment because you didn't want it, therefore I will pursue it based on my party lines. So there's a political dynamic happening. So that's why the competition across the different Malay-based parties, Bersatu, UMNO, and PAS, can't find an agreement, and you see the collapse of a government in 15 months, which is like the shortest compared to even Tan Sri Muhyiddin's or Pakatan Harapan's short tenure.
Right. I do agree that, like you said, this is ethically or according to our rules, it is aligned with our federal constitution. However, it's a lot more complex on the inside. So before we get deeper into our topic, we'll be taking a short break, so don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back.
Hey guys, welcome back to the studio. So previously we were just discussing on who has the ultimate power to dissolve the parliament and who is the one holding the government during that period of time, and so on and so forth. Very sorry. So moving on deeper into our discussion, so the acting Prime Minister Ismail Sabri claimed that the 15th general election should be held to return the mandate to the people. However, would it be fair to say that holding in the general election at this crucial time, considering the monsoon season and the economic instability, would it be fair to consider this as stripping the people of their democratic rights?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Aisha. Essentially, the problem with calling the election at this particular moment in time, a very dangerous situation, is that it's not beneficial for the rakyat as a whole. It's definitely, but however, it is opportune and perfect for the incumbent, UMNO, the party, because the opposition bloc is in disarray. So this is the right opportunity for it to gain momentum, in addition to pursuing what we call the political momentum of the previous Johor state election as well as the Malacca state election. So I think that's why the president of UMNO, Zaid Hamidi, is insistent on trying to push for this at this moment in time, although they still have relatively about 6 months available in terms of the mandate that for GE14 from 2018. So basically, I think it's not good. It does not take away the democratic right, but it makes it very difficult for people to vote. For example, our counterparts from Sabah and Sarawak, for them to travel, because they have already conducted their state elections. So for them to take the cost to travel for just a parliament voting, it will be definitely rational in many ways. However, UMNO believes that this is the right moment for them to pounce, because it is politically convenient for them, and also because the opposition, like I was mentioning, cannot come out with a proper narrative. So all of these factors in, and also in preparation, when you talk about the economy, it is predicted by a lot of international institutions that next year, 2023, will be very, very tough in terms of the economic outlook. So therefore, I think that's why UMNO wants to do it this year, so that they can manage it come next year. Yep.
I see. So meaning to say that it is a very big inconvenience to us as citizens, but on their end of the stick, it's very convenient for them.
And like you said, because of the Malacca state election, they are looking forward to this general election, especially for the party. But it was, I think, especially for the people, it was very confusing because when it was declared that the parliament was dissolved, there were also states as Kelantan, Kedah, and many more states, yes. These states, the parliament would not be dissolved, right? So how is this going to affect the general turnout or impact of the upcoming general election?
Thank you for the question, Ella. That's very pertinent for us to discuss. But before that, I think we should also bring back to the topic of why UMNO needs to call for early elections to motivate them. It will probably be because in line with the recent conviction of Dato Sri Najib Razak for his 12-year jail term. So I think that's why, in terms of image, it is crucial for the party to push for the elections now. Otherwise, they will be basically chopped, or basically they will be labelled as a very corrupt party, which they're trying their best to avoid that label come the real elections next year. Coming back to the question of why certain states, especially the Perikatan Nasional states, the 3 states, Terengganu, Kelantan and Kedah, as well as the Pakatan Harapan states, Negeri Sembilan, Selangor, as well as Penang, refusing on the basis that it will be symbolically as to show that they disagree. Like you were mentioning that the 12 ministers, right, from Perikatan Nasional didn't agree with the dissolution. The same thing, so they are saying that we won't toe the line of what is demanded by the Barisan Nasional Coalition, as well as it is also to think about the relief efforts at the particular states. So in particular, you look what happened last year, the states of Selangor, Negeri Sembilan, they were heavily hit, as well as those in the East Coast. So taking into consideration this, I think it is a very sincere move from both coalitions, Perikatan Nasional and Pakatan Harapan, to not dissolve the state, as well as it is up to the respective sultans in those states that also had to have a role and said that they did not agree, like what we see in Sultan Selangor's case and a few other sultan, that they didn't agree with what was being conducted by the Barisan Nasional Coalition. Yep.
Right. What I understand from what you said, the main takeaway is that this is where we also see the role of the sultans come into the picture, and the people. For the people, we need to also really realize and also be informed of whether there will be a state election for our respective states or not.
So that being said, we all know that previously the national budget of 2023 has already been tabled. So considering the fact that the parliament has already been dissolved, would the national budget of 2023 still go as tabled, put on hold, or change after the general election according to the respective party in rule?
Yep. For the budget, the situation with the budget 2023 is that it was tabled on first. It was put on basically notice to the speaker, and basically it was announced by the finance minister, the prime minister. But it wasn't debated. It hasn't passed through all of the necessary steps for it to become official. It doesn't go to the Dewan Negara, our Senate. It hasn't gone through various debate processes, and basically it is not approved yet. So this is the concern, whereby the budget 2023 has been used as a political campaign. On a Friday, it was announced, and on a Monday, it was dissolved. So this is basically to tell the rakyat or the voters, if you vote us in again with a bigger majority, we can carry out this budget. So in the case that come the results of the elections of GE15, the coalition does not gain a stronghold. It does not gain enough majority. It has to cooperate. So definitely there will be edits in the budget. It will need to be retabled again. Do we have enough time? Does the constitution allow for us to go without a national budget? For how long? So these are some of the things that definitely needs. I think some of the experts have already commented on it. Political scientists in our local political scientists have commented on it. It is a very dangerous situation, whereby it could be a situation whereby we will not have a running budget for next year. And also, I think the problem with that particular issue is that if, let's say, the opposition comes into power, they will definitely need to review the entire thing, which will take even more time for a new budget to be proposed, right? So these are some of the things that I think definitely affects the whole discussion or mood of voter turnout come GE15.
So basically, it's safe to say, I guess, that after the general election, the ruling party will have to make the decision whether they want to continue with the tabled budget or create a new budget to be tabled.
Right, and as you said earlier, the dissolution of the parliament and also due to the issue with the budget 2023, this is going to affect the people and as well as their voting preferences. But exactly how specifically?
Definitely, people who believe that it depends on the category of the groups, right? So those who will receive in the budget, if they are layak or they are granted, they are allowed certain cash handouts, definitely they will vote for the incumbent because they saw what was being tabled, what was on offer for them if they vote again for the same government. But let's say it would definitely affect, in many ways, that's indirectly a way for you to entice your voters. So you're offering it, and then if you want to continue, you vote for us. So that has definitely changed some of the voting patterns, in particular for those who are in the lower income groups. So they will definitely require the financial assistance, the subsidies, any other goodies that were promoted in the budget 2023. And this is something which is basically not healthy for the political culture as a whole, because we do not want that to basically be how we vote. We should vote based on policy rather than other methods.
And how do you think, or what do you think is going to happen once a new government takes over? Do you think that they're going to use the same draft of the budget, or it will slightly change, or it will completely change?
I think they will try their best to maintain what was the main core, which are beneficial for the rakyat. So regardless of any parties that come into power, the main important thing is that it helps the economy, right? It revives the economy in the post-COVID era. Whether or not, I don't think it will be scrapped entirely. I think there will be some edits. However, what is being prioritized, that will be the main issue. I think the budget allocations might need to be relooked, and across the different ministries, again, it will come to the issue of time as well as who becomes the minister and what would be their priority when they want to discuss with MOF in particular. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. So before we get even deeper into our topic, and we're going to be talking about the anti-hopping law specifically, we'll be right back after this commercial break.
And welcome back to Political Insights. We are live here in the studio. Just before the break, we had talked about the national budget of 2023 that was previously tabled. And now we're going to be hopping into a new agenda, which is the anti-hopping law. So the anti-hopping law has been effective since the 5th of October, in which it prevents MPs, members of parliaments, from switching from party to party. So do you think that this would be able to ensure the stability of today's government after the general election?
Yeah, for the anti-hopping law, it was something that was necessary at that moment in time. It was basically as a result from the Sheraton move that saw the legitimate government basically transitioning to a cobbled up coalition. That I think that's why anti-hopping was introduced, and it was bulldozed, or basically it was fast-tracked to be accepted amongst all the MPs. It does not ensure that political stability will continue. That's my first remark. Following up on that, political stability requires much more than just an anti-hopping law. It requires other institutional reforms. When we're talking about political financing law, we're talking about constituency development funds, we're talking about on the topic of having a longer term in parliament, we're talking about the Parliament Services Act. So these are some of the issues that I think will definitely need to be looked into consideration. Even our electoral systems, the first past the post system that has been adopted needs to be also reconsidered or reviewed on the basis that the anti-hopping law only impacts on individual MPs that are deemed to have left the party. But if a party moves from one coalition to another, it does not impact at all. So there are some loopholes in the anti-hopping law. So again, it does not ensure political stability. If let's say a coalition comes up post GE15 and they have a bickering or they do have a disagreement, definitely, because the seats allocation based on estimates will be around a maximum of per party 60 to 60 to 80 seats. So you will need to partner up with other parties, and if you disagree, it will collapse. So again, there is no security in terms of ensuring political anti-hopping law will solve all our problems. Definitely not.
So meaning to say that having an anti-hopping law was necessary for that time, but it doesn't ensure our government in the future to be stable at all, and it doesn't promise us anything.
Yes.
Right, and as we were talking about the anti-hopping law, even though there are many loopholes, like you said, it is mainly to restore public confidence, right? So how could you say or explain to us in terms of the differences between the voters that will probably vote for individuals and that compared to the voters that will vote according to parties of their preferences?
Yeah. When we want to talk about the voting preferences, I would definitely put into play or discuss on the aspect of generational gaps. The generational context is necessary, as you see voters who are slightly older, in their 40s and above, would definitely be much more attached nostalgically to the parties and the role of the parties in terms of developing whatever that is necessary at that community base. However, as time goes by, with the introduction of social media, with more political discourses happening across Malaysia, you're seeing younger voters, in particular those below 40, 30s and whatnot, much more aware, politically alert. The conversations that they're having are much more dynamic, as well as their voting preferences will be slightly inclined towards personality based. Those who they believe are much more capable, much more charismatic. So it is a generational issue, I would say. The party loyalty goes for older generations, much more appealing, or how would you say, personalities will definitely attract the younger voters. That's, I think, how it will turn out. Yeah.
Right. And is there a way for us to basically break this generational issue?
Definitely with more discourses, more and it has to be a cross generation. I mean, another issue that we would also like to highlight is the issue of how, although voters are changing, the party structures are not. So parties are still maintaining their tradition. They're still maintaining their structure, hierarchical and whatnot. So I think although Undi 18 and the automatic voter registration has definitely changed that in many ways. You'll see much more younger candidates appearing, but still the mentality in the party for you to become a young politician in any party, regardless, irrespective of which party brand you belong to, it will be difficult, right? And this is something that is quite far behind for Malaysia in contrast to other countries, much more mature democracies. Yeah, I think that would probably touch on some of the on the questions.
All right, thank
Yeah.
you, sir.
So considering the fact that we're in the post-pandemic situation and the economic and political instability that's been going on for the past few years, also the fact that the minimum age for voting has now went down to 18 years old, right? So how do you think this would affect the voter turnout in the 15th general election compared to the previous election?
Yeah. So statistically, with more voters, the likelihood of having a very low voter turnout is very high. So meaning to say that, yeah, statistically, when you have more voters, 21 million, an addition of about 7 million new voters, definitely it will be difficult for you to reach previous general elections percentages of voter turnout. So if I recall correctly, previously you had about 53%. Prior to that, you had about 84%. Prior to that, 86%. So very high voter turnout. With the increase of voters, and that would definitely affect in terms of voter turnout. I think it will be in the region of 50s. On a good day, it will be 70%. And also there is an issue whereby our election commission, the EC, has not been given enough time to promote, or basically to create more awareness for younger voters, as well as the automatic voter registration. Some of them are not even aware that they are automatically registered or where they belong to in terms of the saluran and whatnot. So I think those things will definitely impact. And as well as we discussed earlier on the issue of the fear of what you call this, the fear of COVID-19. There is also the issue of floods, right? Priority wise, would you want to go out and vote if it's raining, right? So I think those are some of the issues. Definitely, it will be anticipated to be a low voter turnout.
So just because we have an increase in the amount of voters this year doesn't specifically mean that we will have a higher amount of voter turnout.
Yeah, as a caveat, although if let's say there is a national issue, a mother of all issues that could basically unite everyone to come out and vote, that will be a whole different issue. So like what we had in the previous election, you had the 1MDB scandal to basically mobilize people. People were angry. People were motivated to come out and vote. The day of the vote was done on a Wednesday to discourage people to come out. And people said, no, this is against our democratic right. So they actually did the undi balik. I think there were a lot of efforts, like a lot of online campaigns that were done by grassroots, because they wanted to prove to the government at that particular time that it's not just one-way communication. It's not just top-down. The era whereby government knows best is over. So people participated, they came out, and they voted. So for this particular moment in time in GE15, I think people are fatigued. People do not have the energy to basically entertain all of the politics. It's about survival first at the moment. Economy, as well as health, as well as the floods. So yeah.
So our final question for you is, do you have any advice for the Malaysian voters, especially for the youth?
Yeah, there are a lot of things that we could probably highlight, but I think some of it will be when you want to do voting, before going out to vote, do your personal research first. Consult with anyone who is interested with politics, your lecturers, your parents, gain their insights, as well as do a lot of online reading as well. to check whether or not what you're doing is in line with what was supposed to be the processes of voting. So you check your candidates, you check the manifestos, what's on offer, but don't be subscribing to one particular narrative. You should be open enough to have different opinions and basically make a judgment out of that. Secondly, apart from talking through with friends on who to vote, we should actually encourage more discourses on what is best for the country. So what policies can make us better? I think that kind of conversation rather than nak undi siapa, right? I don't think that's a very productive discussion. It should be which party can offer better for the country. And also lastly, be cautious when going through media content, because in the campaign period there will be a lot of racial slurs, you'll have a lot of provocations, you'll have all of this content which are malicious. Therefore you got to be not dragged into that discourse, but rather try to find discourses which are not rhetorical but much more beneficial for the country, and it should be policy based. I would end with those 3 points. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. So to conclude our episode for today, what we've learned is that there are so many disagreements, not just amongst the Member of Parliament, but also amongst the rakyat as well. And the thing is, the Parliament has already been dissolved. So really choose wisely when you vote later, and really compare to what matters most to you in terms of their policies. That matters most. And when at the end of the day, all that matters is a stable country of Malaysia.
And there's been going around a lot of people saying, expressing their, concerns about if they vote, nothing's going to happen, nothing's going to change anyway. So I'm just going to urge you guys, even if you feel that way, just step out. Your votes matter, your votes count. So if you feel like you want to see a change here in Malaysia, just be confident with yourself. Make sure you do the right research and step out into that. Step out into the world and go vote. So thank you guys so much for joining us today on Political Insights. And don't forget to follow IIUM TV on all of our social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and unfortunately we do not have Spotify anymore, but we do have TikTok now, so don't forget to follow us on TikTok as well. And until the next episode, this has been Political Insights, 40 minutes of political knowledge. See you guys next time.
Good night.